We come to our time of prayer. I think I want to start with the obvious trauma and tragedy in our nation today. Another young black man has been killed by police. I think Diane put it best that we just need Jesus. This world needs the love of Christ. I have a lot I want to say. I think I'm frustrated. And I'm frustrated on the order of the same frustration that I have with shootings in schools. Every time it happens, we do the same thing. We get all upset. We say thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. We might do some marches. We might do some demonstrating. And then it all goes back to normal. And nothing really changes. And I'd like to say, well, if we just had different elected leaders, that would take care of it, and it might solve some of it, but truly what Diane says, and a little more, this world needs the love of Christ. More than that, we need to be transformed by the love of Christ. It's not enough to just put your faith in Jesus and be saved. I'm going to heaven, I got my ticket. It's not enough to just come to church, or, all the usual things I tell you to do, and keep on doing those. Read the Bible and pray, and be faithful in your service and stewardship. But really what Paul says in Corinthians is what counts is a new creation. Or in Romans, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Or in Romans 8, we are to be conformed to the image of Christ. That calls for transformation. Don't be conformed to the thinking of this world. Be conformed to the ways of God. And so it calls for the church to do more than just preach and teach and do all those things. It calls for us to live as transformed people. And one element I think of when we're transformed, we think like God. And if you want to think like God, you've got to know what that Bible says, because that is how God thinks. And it begins early in Genesis 1. He created them in His image. And there's no discrimination there. Every human being on the planet is created in God's image. And because of that, every human being deserves to be treated with respect and dignity and worth and love. Jesus tells us to love our neighbor. And we know from the parable of the Good Samaritan, neighbor means basically everybody else. And if we don't love our neighbor, how can we love ourselves? And finally, I'm not going to get to it in 1 John today, but 1 John has that other line. How can anyone love God if they don't love their brother or sister? If you don't love your brother or sister whom you have seen, you cannot love God whom you have not seen. And so the way we can really show a transformed life is by loving the others in our lives. Every other, no matter what ethnic background, gender, education, age, doesn't matter. That is hard to do. That's what will solve the problem. Transformed lives. And it begins with us. Can we live that transformed life? Till then, we will pray. We will pray for the family of George Floyd. We will pray for this nation. But I'm going to pray for transformed lives as well.